So let's just show you. This is actually one of our reports that can print out. Comes out of our system. Oh wait, actually I think I'm actually on the other one. I thought did I show one already? I didn't. Okay, that's okay. I can actually show you on this one anyway. The correct answer is, so I'm going to go back to the difficulty index just for a second. The correct answer is obviously commercialization, so it shows that it's the correct answer. And 65% of the students got it correct. So I can immediately know that based on this particular question, that 65% of however many it is, so the p-value is actually 0.65. Okay, so I can know that from this report as well. Okay, and I can do that just a results by question type of report. I'm going to show you the reports here in a second. Next analysis I just want to show you really quick is the distractor analysis. Remember we talked about using plausible distractors and making sure that they all are good. Well, I can just use, again, I can use this results by question report, and I can compare the proportion that got it right next to the ones that didn't get it right. So what I'm looking at here is, 20% of the students thought it was test marketing and 15% thought it was new product development. Nobody thought it was experimenting. And maybe on this test I might think, well, maybe that experimenting answer isn't a real plausible answer. But I might want to test it out one more time because maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe just nobody seemed to guess that one. But if I use this again and nobody ever guesses this, this tells me that this is probably not a plausible answer. If nobody ever guesses it, it's not a plausible answer. So you want to obviously probably throw that one out, throw something else that might be a little bit more plausible. Distractor analysis, you calculate the difficulty index, which we just talked about, the p-value for each answer option, and then analyze them next to each other in a nutshell is kind of what we do. So distractors that are selected more often than other options should be changed, including the correct answer. And it's not important that all distractors are selected equally. So if 50% of the students get it right and you have 3 other answers, you don't have to have an equal distribution across all the other plausible distractors. So that's perfectly fine too, as long as your distractors are getting something, because that's what's giving you whether or not it's a good question or good option. So just some real quick basic rules for item development. Distractors, again, that aren't chosen by any students should be replaced or eliminated. Makes guessing correctly more likely if you don't. Remember I talked about getting rid of that 1. Gives you a 1 out of 3 chance of getting the answer correct. And then items that virtually every student answers correctly should be replaced also. So the question that I asked you guys and you got it all right, makes me feel good as an instructor, like, wow, didn't I do a great job? But it probably is not a good distractor. So let me show you very quickly. There are 32 possible reports. I'm not going to show you all of them. We do have help files available, obviously, and we often go by the no harm, no foul reporting. Click on every box if you want to and generate the report and then decide what you want to keep. So it all comes up in typically an Excel spreadsheet. We do have some reports that come up in Word documents. But if you get a tab down at the bottom, you're like, I don't need this information, then delete it. It's no big deal. So go ahead and generate all the reports if you want to kind of see what they do. Here's a slide showing all of our different reports, 10 different categories, 32 different reports that you can do. And I'm just going to show you some of the ones that I use most often and that I think would be really valuable for you too. Graphical results by question. You can do the graphical results or you can just do the results by question. I showed you the results by question earlier. That was a slide that I showed you. Here it actually gives you the graphical. This is kind of nice if you want to use it in a report for showing other faculty or maybe use it as data for an article that you might be writing. So it automatically produces that for you, that visual for you. So this is the same answer that I showed you before, but now with the graphical. Something else that you can do, and it's under our comparative scoring reports, you can actually do a scoring distribution. So you're taking, pardon me, taking a look at the number of students that got 5 out of 5 questions correct. There were 8 students that did. How many students got 4 out of 5? So this might be actually beneficial for some of you to use that as well. We also do the individual scoring. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier in the first session, that if you want to give some students some feedback, and this is also under the comparative scoring reports, individual scoring. So this was Beth. It's probably not a good one to use because Beth was a Phi Beta Kappa on our campus, and she always got everything right. But I can give her some feedback on some of the things that she may or may not have gotten correct. Send that to her after class. And then you can run some statistics if you would like. It's underneath our other reports. And so I took out their last names so that nobody knows who they are. And so let's say Abdul got 80%. How far is he off of the mean? Well, the mean correct for this particular quiz was 81. So I can tell the students very quickly. I don't have to do any math. I can just say the students, well, what was the average? 81. Okay. And then this print tells me how far off they were from the mean. So that might be of use for you all. And then I want to end with this particular report only because I think it can be useful for you. It's also under our other reports, and it's the attendance report. This is a nice thing to have because if a student says, if you've named your session, let's say Chapter Challenge 8, February 19th, 2010, for instance, and a student comes to you and says, well, Professor, I was there on February 19th. If they don't have a check mark by their name, they weren't there because they never clicked in. Not once did they click in. So either they were there and then, well, gee, Brian, if he didn't have a check mark here, well, Brian, if you were there, then you weren't participating. Why weren't you participating? And then you can question him on that. More than likely, he probably wasn't there. So you have this as a tool for you as far as keeping attendance. Disclaimer on this, if the only reason you're ever going to use these clickers is for attendance, the students are not going to enjoy using them. So the purpose is to use pedagogy, get them engaged, and so forth. Doesn't mean you can't use it for attendance. In fact, I do, but my students don't know I'm using it for attendance. They have no idea that I'm keeping track that they were there or they weren't there. It's just my way of doing it. So this is a nice report to have as well. And then lastly, let's say you want to have an outline of the questions that you actually asked. It's also under our other reports. And this comes out in a Word document. So it just prints out the questions with the correct and incorrect answers on it. So you have that for your files if you need them. And then just, okay, we're okay. I've got a couple of extra slides. Talk about managing sessions. You can work with data in several different sessions at once. And so once you save your session, you can work with that, or you can merge some together, or you can do something with the data in that session as well. So I just want to show you really quickly. I think some of you are probably users of the product already, and some of you are not. But one of the things that I did before I started this session is I went ahead and I reset the entire session. So that means that all of the answers previous that might have been used in this presentation are now deleted and gone. So now I'm getting new data. So there's just different ways to do that. Let's say I just wanted to clear the data for this particular slide. I can do that as well. And I can do that right when I'm setting up the system or the presentation. I can also edit some session data. Let's say that afterwards you want to go back in and you're saying, well, wait a minute, you know what? I accidentally had the wrong correct answer. I said that it was B and it was actually C. Or I'm willing to also accept C. How many times have the students said, well, it could be C, and you look at the question and you're like, you know what, it really could be B or C. Okay, I'll give credit for B and C. You don't have to go back in and mathematically figure out and look and see, well, who answered C and give them credit. You can actually go back into session management, edit session, and it'll allow you to do all of these things. So you can set or change a correct answer. You can award or change points for an answer, kind of the same thing. You can exclude a question from grading. So if the students say, well, this just wasn't a good question, or you decide among yourself that this just wasn't a good question. I mean, how many times have we developed a question and it ended up, this wasn't a good question. I want to throw it out. Now, if you don't throw it out, it'll automatically in the reports be in there. And so if you're seeing how many percentage of the questions they got correct, and you have 5 questions, it'll count it in there. But you can go back in now and throw it out, and now it's only counting those 4. So you can do that in the edit sessions as well. And you can also set a question as demographic if you so choose to do so. So you can do some comparison later on how the males might have answered different than the females, or how the juniors answered different than the seniors. So you can go back in and set a slide or a question as a demographic as well. And so that's under the Tools tab on the toolbar at the top. So Tools, Session Management, Edit Session. And you can also then merge some session files, as I mentioned. So take multiple session files, make them one. So you can look at a whole week's worth of lessons for a class if you'd like. Again, it's under the Tools tab, Session Management, Merge Session Files. So you can do that. You can see how multiple classes did on one assignment. So if you're teaching multiple sections of the same class, you can actually merge them together if you'd like, or you can look at multiple groups as a whole.